talk if they want to.
And welcome to Let Them Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo, and my guest tonight is Doug Greene. Miss Moosey, Jo Marie Moosey, who's usually our, trip and co-host here on Let Them Talk, is taking care of her dad, who's doing better, and she hopefully will be back soon because I really miss her, and we really, I know her fans here at Let Them Talk really miss her, and we give shout out to Joni and to her dad. All right, now. Doug Greene, welcome again. You haven't been here for a while. Glad to have you.
Thank you for having me back, Paul. Great.
All right. Now, you do a lot of things. You wear a lot of different hats.
Yes.
The hat today, we're going to talk about the medical marijuana bill that's before. It's really not a medical marijuana bill that's before the New York City Council, but the New York City Council is playing a role in the medical marijuana bill that's before the state Senate and the Assembly here in New York.
Correct.
State. And we'll be talking about that. Tomorrow's the big vote at the City Council.
Yes.
And let's begin. Medical marijuana. Maybe we should just tell people what medical marijuana is all about. What is medical marijuana? Why should anybody care? Especially, let's say you're healthy. Why should you care?
Well, why you should care is because even if you're healthy, you probably have a friend or a family member who is suffering from a condition that could benefit from the medical use of marijuana. Mm-hmm. And
what are those conditions?
Well, there are a lot of different conditions. There's probably several dozen conditions that it's been found effective for, but some of the key ones are glaucoma, wasting syndrome from AIDS, anorexia, multiple sclerosis. Those are some of the really common ones.
Okay, so that's amazing. So and these are the city health department has argued the Bloomberg position opposing or against the bill, against this bill that's in the city council and by extension the bill that's in Albany to have medical marijuana, saying that, it hasn't been proven. This is all hearsay evidence, these are people telling stories, and that there's no research to back it up.
That's what they've said. They're wrong.
They're wrong. What do you mean by that? They're wrong?
I mean, there has been a lot of research done, especially in the past, the past 15 years on medical marijuana, despite its Schedule I status. In California, as part of their medical marijuana program, they set up a center for medical cannabis research at the University of California, San Diego, which recently, unfortunately, had to shut down because they no longer had any money in the state budget for them. But they produced some really quality work demonstrating that marijuana had medicinal benefits.
I see. Well, let's talk about this bill then, because we've had at least one of the sponsors here on this program to discuss it.
Richard Gottfried. I was in the studio for that.
Right, what amazed me was that this bill has languished for so many years in the House and in the Assembly and in the Senate in Albany that it's not even, there actually is a medical marijuana bill in New York that passed 30 years ago, the Oliver G. Coppell Compassionate Use Act or something like that, which has never been, I mean, the Reagan era of Just Say No came right after it passed, and it just was never...
Right, I mean, there were actually, I think, about 30 different states that passed medical marijuana legislation at that point. However, what those laws envisioned was that the federal government was going to play a role in dispensing marijuana, which it still does to this day to about 4 people who are still left alive.
4 people.
Yeah, there is an investigational new drug program that the
L.V. Musaka, is she still...
she is. L.V. Musica. Irvin Rosenfeld, and I can't remember who the other 2 are, but those are 2 of the 4 who are still alive.
Right. I've spoke to L.V., and she gets a big can filled with the marijuana cigarettes that says United States government supplied from some farm that they run in Mississippi.
Right, the University of Mississippi.
She said it was terrible. It was the worst. If she had to rely for her medical problems, cancer, glaucoma, all these other things, on these rolled government cigarettes, it would never work. That she has to supplement that with the real thing.
Right. The quality is not supposed to be very good. Unfortunately, what happened was that in the early 90s, some AIDS advocacy organizations found a way to really shorten the amount of time it would take people to apply to get marijuana under this investigational new drug program. And so as a result, and I think about 1991, 92, the first Bush, George H.W. Bush, basically killed that program and only kept it open for the people who were still enrolled as of that point.
As soon as ACT UP and other groups found out
Exactly.
a way to get people through the process much more quickly and efficiently, they stopped it, which tells you that
Exactly. That's
that
exactly
was the
what happened.
intent all along.
Yeah.
There was no intention to go ahead with these laws.
No. This was just, this was a result of a settlement with the government that they had to set up the IND program, and once it looked like it was about to really get overwhelmed by people, with a lot of people participating, Bush 1 killed it.
Right, so that was the end of it until 1995 or so, when it passed in California.
96, right, is when it passed in
Prop
California.
215.
Right.
Passed in California. It's been followed up in a dozen other states.
16 states in the District of Columbia now have at least laws on the books to have medical marijuana programs. Not all those states have actually started their programs yet, but there are 16 states in the District of Columbia that have.
Interestingly, at first it was the usual suspects. You hear that they've legalized marijuana in any way in places like California, Colorado, Oregon, Washington State.
Right, those were
the pothead capitals of America.
Those were some of the first states that had.
But then it's more difficult to do it in states, Indiana, Illinois. We're talking about states, Kentucky. It's been trying for a long time. Our friend Gatewood Galbraith just passed, but he was always running for governor over and over again, trying to get it passed in Kentucky, where Kentucky bluegrass is more than just something that the horses run on.
Right. And, we've pretty much exhausted most of the states that you can do it by initiative.
Right. The other ones are just too concerned. Missouri, we had a fellow in Missouri who they didn't even find a plant. They busted his house based on an informant. The plant was gone, and they charged him anyway. And he's facing huge time in jail, even though he suffers from cancer and all these things. And I asked him on this show, and he said, "Forget it, Missouri, he'll never go for it."
Right. Actually, there are activists in Missouri right now who are trying to get something on the ballot to completely legalize marijuana
just
in Missouri.
Going for it on a libertarian basis in a conservative state. Maybe they can get people to go for it on that.
Yeah, Missouri is fast. It's really mixed state. I think it's definitely got an uphill battle in Missouri, especially for complete legalization.
Religion is except for some progressive religious people. Religion has really not gotten behind this. they're sort of anti-drug, and America's a religious country, especially the central part of it.
It has been hard to get a lot of religious organizations on board.
Yeah, they fought hard to get rid of alcohol, and they prohibited it for a long time, and then it was effective. You have to say, alcohol prohibition reduced alcohol consumption in America eventually. It was a difficult way, maybe the hard-nosed way of doing it, but eventually they got what they wanted.
It did, but of course there were also the health costs from people drinking, poisonous alcohol, and of course the crime costs of the prohibition.
Right.
So if you look at the fact that yes, probably less people were dying of cirrhosis, but the social and health costs from from the prohibition were far greater than.
Right. So Doug Greene, a couple of things I want to ask you now, but let's come to the East Coast and talk about the New York law and New Jersey as well. But before, I want to give you an opportunity. There's some things that are happening tomorrow and next few days, and some things you're working on. Maybe you want to tell folks about. Tell them out there.
Oh,
I already know.
Okay. Well, one of the things that's going on is tomorrow night at the Yippee Museum and Cafe, which is at 9 Bleecker Street, on the north side of Bleecker Street, between Bowery and Elizabeth. There's a regular Wednesday night Occupy Wall Street comedy event, and that is going to be preceded at 7 p.m. by an organizational meeting for the New York City event chapter of the Global Cannabis Peace March, which happens every year on the first Saturday of May. Last year, about 200 some odd cities participated, and we are going to be organizing for Saturday, May 5th. We are working out some of the final details, but we have met with the police, and have been in communication with the Parks Department. We are definitely going to have an event that goes from Washington Square Park to Union Square Park, and that is going to be happening tomorrow.
Not the event, but the meeting.
The meeting, yes, the meeting to prepare.
Outreach.
Yes, the meeting to prepare for the event, and the Occupy Wall Street Comedy Night tomorrow night is going to focus on drug policy and legalization. That's going to be the top.
Excellent, and that's all free, by the way. There's no charge.
No charge for any of that.
No, and never is.
Never is. And another thing that we're working on organizing is on St. Patrick's Day. Empire State NORML is planning on having a Marijuana is Safer event near City Hall. There are negotiations about the exact details of that, but you can look for Empire State NORML on Facebook, on Empire State NORML's website, which is empirestatenormal.com. Empire State NORML is the New York chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, or NORML. And those are some of the things that are going to be going on.
Now, behind us, we're looking at a picture of our City Hall,
Yes.
New York City Hall, and the New York City Council. I'll be attending tomorrow because I'm writing a little story about it for the Villager newspaper.
Great.
And I want to give people an opportunity to know what's going to happen. What exactly is happening in the New York City Council tomorrow at 1:30 p.m.?
So what is going on in the New York City Council is there is going to be a vote, which our understanding is that there will be a voice vote, in which there won't be a roll call of the 51 city council members, but there'll just be a yes or no voice vote on resolution number 94A, which is a resolution calling on the state legislature to pass the medical marijuana bills that are currently before the Senate and the Assembly. They've both been referred to the health committees of each chamber, which are bills to legalize medical marijuana in New York State.
Now, New York State is not alone in the Northeast. New Jersey recently passed a medical marijuana bill that our New York bill is to some extent is patterned on.
No, the New York bill is much more liberal than the New Jersey bill. Yeah, the New Jersey bill is incredibly strict. The New Jersey bill, for example, patients can only have 2 ounces at a time, which is a very low limit. Now, New York's is not much higher, 2.5 ounces. Another big difference between the New York and the New Jersey law, which has been enacted.
It's enacted. They passed it in New Jersey.
Yes.
But isn't there some, well, tell me the difference, and then I want to ask you a question.
Well, another big difference is that the New Jersey bill, like a lot of the more recent bills in Delaware and the District of Columbia, has a very specific list of conditions that it names the conditions.
Okay.
Which is the exact opposite of California, in which a physician basically can recommend medical marijuana for any condition that they feel it would be a benefit
Depression, whatever.
Right.
As long as the doctor is willing to do it.
That's right.
You can get it. And you get a little card with your picture on it and your name, and you're registered at a dispensary, and you go and you buy your marijuana, which is provided by the California marijuana growers.
Right. The card actually is optional. The card's issued by county health departments. But what you
I've
need,
seen the card done. That's why I was there, and I saw Dennis Perron's little thing was they were making the cards up for everybody.
you actually need a written recommendation, which is has
from the doctor.
From the doctor, it has an embossed seal on it.
And they would put it on in your file.
Yes.
The dispensary that you go to usually has it on file.
Yes.
So
I actually have one of those. I should have brought it with me, but
that's interesting. So you can actually legally, as a patient, buy marijuana from a dispensary legally in California if you have that letter from a doctor. But how is that different in, let's say, New Jersey?
Well, in New Jersey, again, another difference with New Jersey is that New Jersey has a limit on the number of dispensaries or compassion centers that can be set up. The initial limit was 2 in each section of the state. So 2 in northern New Jersey, 2 in central New Jersey, and 2 in southern New Jersey.
That's a long drive.
Yeah.
That could be a long drive for somebody who's like outside of that area.
That can be a long drive.
Hard to get a bus there too, and trains aren't as effective as here. Now, New York, how does the New York bill change different for that?
Another thing that the New York way in the New York bill is different is that the New York bill says that a physician or a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant can certify a patient with a serious condition. And serious condition is a defined term. What a serious condition is defined as is a severe and debilitating or life-threatening condition, or a complication of such a condition, or something resulting from the treatment of that condition, including, you know, dysphoria, nausea, pain, things like that.
So it's a broader spectrum of disorders that can be treated.
Right. They're not specifically named. They're categorized, but there's not specific
and New
disorders.
Jersey has named it.
They have named a very limited number of conditions. One of the things, for example, that New Jersey does not cover, which in a lot of states is the most common reason that people get medical marijuana, is chronic pain.
Yeah.
I think you can only get, and I'm not positive of this, I haven't studied the Jersey law at length, but I think, you know, if you have cancer and suffer from chronic pain, then I think you can have access. There are certain conditions where you have to have tried other methods and those haven't worked, and then you can have access.
Yeah.
It's very strict. It's one of the strictest regimes in the country, in New Jersey.
Okay, and still they're not, the governor Christie has not allowed them to open.
No, actually, Chris Christie Chris Christie is a former U.S. attorney in New Jersey, and he has apparently come to the conclusion that the federal government will not interfere. One of the problems that's going on now in New Jersey, one of my colleagues recently went to Camden to a zoning board meeting, is that local governments are resisting having these facilities in their, jurisdiction. Yeah, it's the NIMBY problem.
Not in my backyard, and that seems to be a focus of the opposition in New York, because the state prosecutor, narcotics prosecutor herself, from what I could read, and I'm no lawyer, but from what I could read, she seemed to be making that argument that where are these going to go? You have to solve the problem of where these are going to go before you can pass this law, because communities don't want them.
There certainly are communities that don't want them. I mean, we've seen that all over the country. They'll
see it as a methadone clinic, just another methadone clinic.
Right, and my understanding from this hearing in Camden was that the people on the zoning board really didn't understand the difference between a medical marijuana dispensary and illegal drug dealers, which, Camden is a pretty ravaged city.
Right.
And they really didn't understand the difference between a medical marijuana dispensary trying to provide medicine to sick people and, the people who are operating in their communities dealing crack.
When did marijuana become illegal? 1930s?
1937.
1937 to 2012. That's a lot of time, a lot of propaganda to undo.
75 years.
Right. Even with all the people who smoke marijuana today, there's tens of millions of people who just hear marijuana and they're going to think Noriega, they're going to think Mexico, they're going to think heroin addicts in the street. They're not going to know or even really care that much about the difference. Is there any plan? How are you going to outreach to them? Is it possible?
I still think, sadly, there is a tremendous amount of public education that needs to be done. Until that's done, there's always going to be somewhat of an upper limit in terms of our political support, though certainly medical marijuana is approved by supermajorities, even of Republicans and conservatives.
Sure.
But there still are a lot of misunderstandings out there about marijuana.
Right.
Unfortunately,
Well, NIMBY isn't just conservatives. I mean, the Lower East Side is the most liberal community in the state, and they've had tremendous
NIMBYism. I think NIMBYism is NIMBYism, like medical marijuana, spans all sorts of political ideologies.
Wall Street did more damage to people's home values than any methadone clinic ever did, it turns out.
Absolutely.
Right, and that's sort of a wake-up call to folks. But we're actually live. Our number is 212-757-1538. My guest, Doug Greene, is, as you can hear, an expert on medical marijuana laws, and particularly here in New York State and what's going on in New York State. Why do we need the city of New York to counsel? I've never heard of this. The city of New York passing a law that asks the state legislature to pass another law?
Oh, well, it's not a law. It's a resolution. I mean, apparently it's really not uncommon. There are resolutions are passed all the time. It's really easy to pass a resolution because it's not a law.
Will
it's
it have any effect?
Honestly, Minimal. I would say probably minimal. New York City is still, overwhelmingly Democratic. The issue with the medical marijuana bill is really not so much in the Assembly, which has actually passed it twice, but it's in the Senate. And in the Senate, the lead sponsor is Tom Duane.
Sure.
Very well-respected legislator.
Might be listening right now.
But he's a Democrat. And the problem is finding a Republican. Republicans still have a 3-vote majority, at least until January of next year in the state Senate. And so Republicans control that chamber.
But Republicans are among some of the strongest supporters for medical marijuana. This is something, it's sort of, for liberals, medical marijuana has been a wedge issue. It's something where liberal and progressive forces have actually won people over from conservative and the moderate side to their support. Why are these people, what's their problem in Albany? I mean, Republicans. There's so many Republicans who smoke pot. There's police officers who smoke marijuana, and there's police officers whose family members have cancer and could use marijuana. What's stopping them? I mean,
I just, my understanding from people who have gone up to Albany and met with legislators is that they don't really see it as something that's going to help them get reelected. And this is an election year. They're heavily focused on that right now, and they're looking for issues that are going to help them get reelected. And certainly
taxes, things like that, the usual Republican stuff.
Right. And I mean, certainly, this is not something that is going to, thrill the Republican base.
As a whole.
Yeah, it's not something that's going to...
Republicans, but not...
Right. As a whole, it's not going to something that's going to say, wow, that issue is really important to me, and I'm going to do my best to reelect my Republican state senator.
Considering that the current president of the United States is admitted and wrote quite a lot about his own role as a marijuana seller as a kid, as a college student.
A seller?
Yeah, I think he did sell it. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. I knew.
We have to double check the book.
I knew about the use, but I didn't think that that Barry Obama actually dealt the weed.
I think he did. I think so. Yes, I think he admits it in his book. We have to get the book out, and maybe this is something where the fact checkers out there, who has read Obama's book, great book. It's been a while, and I don't remember. So tell me. Call in. Our number's on the screen: 212-757-1538. Does President Obama admit in his autobiography, that he once, while in New York, I believe, actually sold marijuana?
Right. He was at Columbia. I know that.
Yeah, and/or cocaine. Tell me if you've read the book, okay? Because I have to go check my copy. All right, it's been a while. Well, he's not the only one. We had all the last 3 or 4 presidents in a row were admitted. I guess Bush 1 was from the generation that didn't do that kind of thing.
No,
Clinton,
probably not.
Bush 2, Obama. Actually, marijuana or cocaine. The more Republican people tended to do more cocaine, it seems.
Yeah, I think so.
And the marijuana was the Democratic drug.
Right, sure. I mean, there was Willie Nelson smoking pot on the roof of the White House in the Carter administration.
Right. So, the point being that marijuana is, its use is widespread. It's in the police establishment. It's in the government establishment. People are using it every day, and yet they turn around and arrest people. And that brings me to the last thing I want to talk about, which is stop and frisk, of course. And I know you've been following that. And I know there was a recent report that just came out about nearly 700,000 stop and frisks, 50,000 marijuana arrests based on those stop and frisks. What's going on there?
I mean, there was a report that came out a few years ago from Harry Levine, who's a professor of sociology at CUNY Queens College. He's probably going to be one of the speakers at the St. Patrick's Day event that Empire State NORML is putting on. And, marijuana arrests are gravy for cops.
Yeah.
They love it. They get overtime. They're dealing with people who are generally, much more pleasant and interesting to spend a couple of hours filling out paperwork with than, a crack dealer or a crack user.
It's an easy arrest.
It's an easy arrest. It looks good. And it's really, of course, these stop and frisks, this police presence in these minority neighborhoods that are driving these arrests. There was an order that Ray Kelly put out to the NYPD last year saying, if you ask, because what a lot of the cops were doing were saying, oh, if you have anything on you, it's not a big deal, take it out. And of course, once they take it out, it's open to public view, which means that it's a misdemeanor instead of being a violation under New York penal law. And so that was a common practice. And there was a slight decline towards the end of the year, in marijuana arrests, but it really didn't go down that much. And it's still, over 50,000 arrests. It's way too much. New York City is still the marijuana arrest capital of the world, which is, a disgrace to those of us who...
It's supposed to be legal. I mean, it's almost legal in New York City, at least, I mean, what is the marijuana laws in New York City? What are they?
Well, there's no marijuana laws in New York City that are separate from New York State.
Okay.
In New York State, under 25 grams, which is about 7/8 of an ounce is 28 grams, under 25 grams in private is a violation for which you can be ticketed up to $100. If it's burning or open to public view, it falls under a different section of the penal law in which it's a low-level misdemeanor.
So that's weird. So I guess if they come into your house because your bathtub overflowed and they see a bag of marijuana out, that's a violation, less than 25 grams. But if somebody's smoking in their house and the cop's walking by and smells it out the window, then that's a more serious offense.
Well, I'm actually not an attorney, but they would have to, have a, probable cause to enter the premises. There have been some mixed rulings on whether or not a police officer's sense of smell is sufficient enough grounds to search a premises. But that's still a private place. Burning or open to public view only applies to a public place.
With stop and frisk, let me see your ID, you open your wallet, there's some marijuana in your wallet. Oh, open view.
Right.
Okay.
Well,
thank you very much, Doug Greene. Tell us again, tomorrow at
the Yippee Museum Cafe, 9 Bleecker Street, an Occupy Wall Street comedy night focusing on drug policy and legalization. And just before that, at 7 p.m., an organizational meeting for this year's Global Cannabis Peace March in New York City from Washington Square Park to Union Square Park, all free.
That's May 5th, right?
That is Saturday, May 5th.
Okay, so that's the usual first Saturday in May. So, all right, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for coming to joining Let Them Talk, and we'll see you again.
Thanks.